Hi, welcome to our session on how to engage with your child's school on a busy schedule. My name is Maria Pia Ulrich. I am the Multicultural Coordinator for Successful Innovations. As always, here is my email. If you have any questions about this PowerPoint, you would like to chat, you would like to connect, here it is. I have about a 24-hour turnaround. Okay. All right. So today we're going to talk about why family engagement matters. We're going to talk about defining engagement, communication, supporting learning at home, and establishing a positive relationship with your child's teacher, managing time, and practical tips to try at home. So let's go ahead and start with our mountains and valleys. So let's recenter for a moment. Let's talk about something that went well, which is our mountain, and our valley is something that could have gone better. All right. If you are welcome to put it in the chat box if you would like to um, chat. Otherwise, if you're watching this remotely, you're welcome to pause the video. So for me, a mountain today is that I was able to drop off my kiddos early at school, but a valley is that I had connectivity issues today. So that is something that it was a low point for my day, and then hopefully it can improve. All right. So why does engagement matter? Well, research says that a strong relationship between home and school really helps students value education because that positive relationship, the students see, okay, my parents care about education, therefore I will care about education. So it is very much a modeling situation. It helps improve with attendance as well as improve as college and career readiness. It helps improve grades, and it improves communication between the school and identify concerns. When as families we're involved with what's going on in the school, we're able to say, well, I noticed that my child can do X, Y, and Z. And I also notice this. So those communications can be given to the teacher so our children can perform better academically. And it also supports the social emotional growth. It creates higher confidence. It creates an academic growth for the students. And it lowers suspension rates. And it also lowers our children getting into trouble in school. So what is one benefit you hope to gain from staying connected with your child's school? If you're watching this remotely, you are welcome to write out a list of all the things that you hope that your child benefits from going to school. And remember, when we talked about family engagement, we really want to talk about how we try to involve ourselves in school and what does it look like for our family. Every family is different. We all have different priorities, and we have to really honor that. Okay. So, what might be some of the barriers that we might encounter? One of the very honest barriers is that there's not enough hours of the day. When I found myself working, I found that I honestly did not have all the hours in the day to be able to do everything I needed to do. And when I was working full time. And for example, if my son needed to practice band every day, they had to practice their band instrument, but they also had to do their math homework and their English homework. And sometimes there was just not enough hours of the day to be able to do every day. And I had to pick and choose of when and how I needed to communicate with their teachers. Also, there's more than one child at the household. There's more than one responsibility. If you are a household with two working parents, then the dynamic is different if one parent stays at home. There's also the language and communication barriers. Do we feel like we're being understood when we communicate with our child's educator? Are we able to get that point across? Also, there's things that we need to consider is technology challenges. When I was in school, my parents were not able to be as involved as much as they wanted to because it was a time where technology was picking up and they had to check email. So I will be sitting down and helping them check their email. Or if our communication is through social media, do I have access to that social media? I remember it was a time where Facebook was starting and schools were putting things out, and my dad wanted to see announcements, and the announcements were coming out on Facebook. So I had to help my dad sign up to Facebook. So those are challenges that we have to consider as well. And then not knowing who the point of contact is. I know that at the beginning of the school year, our teachers are very good at providing us a point of contact, providing us their syllabus, their emails, or the application that they use, if it's Class Dojo or Remind or Talking Points. They provide us those communications. So we have to make sure to put it in the fridge right away. We have to put it in a safe space, in a safe spot, so we can actually use it. Also, the fact that we feel guilty that we might not be doing enough. Sometimes it's like, if I feel that everything is just not going well, then it's easier to give up. It's easier to feel overwhelmed, to feel unsure, to feel consumed by that. Uh, as well, if we have had negative previous experiences at school, in a very unconscious way, we might say, oh, no, I don't want to get involved in this aspect just because we carry the negative connotation with us, the negative experience. And we have to remember that our children's experience in school is different than what our experience might be or what might look like. I was what you would consider a multilingual learner, which is English language learner when I was about 11. My child experience is different because they learn English at a very early age. So I have to honor that and remember that they don't have the point of reference. Okay. So we need to really redefine what engagement looks like. Back in the 90s, when I was in school, I felt like my dad, for him, what it meant to be engaged was the ability to be able to go and volunteer every day he had off. So my dad would work 3 consecutive weeks, and then he had 1 week off, 1 week off from work, and then he would try to, out of those 7 days, there was 5 days of school. He would try to go 3 of those days, or maybe 4, and that for him meant that he was volunteer, at, helping the teacher, building that trust with the teacher. However, not every family has that possibility to do that. So we really need to remember and be conscious that every small action and consistent action makes a difference. And we have to remember what it may look like for our family. In my household, I was unable to go every like my dad would 4 days a month. I could not go to the school of my children's 4 days a month and stay there the whole day. That was not feasible for me. So my way to engage with the school, with the content, with what my child was doing looked different. I would have communication through the application. I will support the learning at home by doing the material. I will have to be honest, I had to engage and communicate. When I had to send a message, I had to be very direct. And I had to keep the communication simple. And I will sign up. I will make sure I had to sign up to the newsletters. And I will do my best to read them as quickly as I could, have the point. And I will also look at the schedule ahead of time and see what things or events I could sign up. I have a friend that she has a no negotiables. Okay, this is the thing that I need to sign up at school to do. And I will be there at every single school event, whether it was a field trip or whether it was a math night or whether it was an English night. There was that no negotiable that they will pen and try to do their best. So what I recommend is look at your schedule ahead of time, look at what matches and what doesn't match. And perhaps you may not be able to be there in person, but you can send something else, or you can talk to your child. I work with a family with a mom that she was consistently working, and she felt really bad about not being able to go to her daughter's concert. So she told her, look, I am going to send this family friend because that family friend also had children in that concert, in that school, in that classroom. And she said to her, every time you see her, remember I'm right there with you. I'm seeing you too. So don't be sad because I'm not there. I am there. I'm just not there in the way that I'm physically there, but she is there to support you on my behalf. So when you look at her, think of me because she's got to come back and tell me how you did in the concert, detail step by step what you did. So that is how the family engagement looked like in her classroom because she was unable to go into the concert herself. And she knew that she texted the teacher very quickly and sent she had to even translate it on Google Translate and told her, I cannot be there, but so and so will be there on my behalf. And that's what it looked like in her family. But most of all, we have to really build that trust. So if we say we're going to try to do something, we have to do the best as parents to actually make it happen because that trust is what makes everything go around. And that's what research says that the first component to build a strong family, to build a strong family and school relationship comes down to the level of trust. How much do you trust that the school has the best interest for your child? And how much does the school trust that they're being supported? Also, something that I notice as well is make sure that you update your address, your phone numbers, your emails. Make sure that the school can get a hold of you if they need to. Because we move and we have the stress of moving, and there's just so many things going on that we forget to update that address. We have to make sure that it's up to date because if they need to send us a letter, they're going to send it to the wrong address. And why wouldn't they? We haven't updated that address. So that's another point that we have to consider. And the key point is communication. So we're going to look at communication in two dimensions. One dimension meaning how does communication look from school to us and then from us to school. So if we're thinking from school to us, we can't control what is going on at school, but we can control our reactions. So are we reading the school emails, the teacher messages regularly? Sometimes I feel the application, there's so many things that are being sent that some of us, because we're working, we put it on mute, but then we never go back and actually read those messages. And those messages have important information about either a test or how field trip is coming up, or if there's a change in the school schedule. Also, our if we need an extra aid, an extra translation system, what is the school system that the school is using? Do we know what it is? And are we responding to the communication? Because communication is a two-way. So if they send a message and they say, hi, we need all parents to sign up for X, Y, and Z, and we can't attend to that event, are we going and letting the teacher know, I'm sorry, I can't attend to that event, but perhaps could I support in other way? Are we keeping track of those important days? Because that calendar, it is our communication. Do I have the school calendar in my fridge? Do I have it synced up to my phone? Do I have the class syllabus? Another thing as well to consider is, am I checking my child's grades regularly? The grades are a form of communication. If your child, as your child progresses, if they're in an older grade, the communicate, it seems to be that we start in elementary where we have all of this communication, all of these newsletters, as they progress to middle school and high school, the communication decreases. So sometimes, because they have more than one teacher, the best point of communication as well is that grade. How are they doing? Are they missing an assignment? Because missing an assignment is showing us that there's a skill in there that a child might not be doing. Is the grade low because they did not understand the content? That is a form of communication that they need extra help. So we really have to look at those grades as well. Okay. Now, communication from us to school. For us to be able to communicate with what's going on to school, we have to check what the school platform is. Is the school sending messages through social media? If they're sending it through Facebook, Instagram, or another platform, are we checking that regularly? Are we checking the email list? Are we checking the folder? Are we checking the backpack? How are we asking your child specific questions about school? When we ask them about school, if we ask them, hey, how was school? The usual response is fine, especially as they get older. Good. So we have to really expand on those questions and say, hey, tell me what is one thing you learned today at math? And how do you learn that? How are you doing with this? Okay, what was the challenge you had today? None. And sometimes it's easier for them to give us about one word answers. So we really have to go back and expand on that words. Okay, how come that was fine? What made it fine? Can you expand on that? And at the beginning, yes, they get a little annoyed, but if you notice too, you let them just talk and chat and keep talking and talking and talking. And the more they talk, the more you get to know what is that they are doing and what is that they deem important. Because when we think of school, we think about the subjects. Okay, how do you did in math, social studies, science, computer science? How are you doing all those things? But for them, also the relationship piece is important. So we just have to let them chat and talk to us and tell us more and more about their day. And if we have questions and concerns, we have to reach out early. If we know that there is something that our child needs, we need to let the school know early. And that may look differently for each of us. If we also know that maybe my son did. I remember my son being in third grade. He had a he had a rough nine, and he took his toys with him to bed. And his toys were those plastic toys, and he woke up feeling a little uncomfortable with his arm. So it seemed like he has slept between the toy and had put his arm between the toy and the bed. So of course the next morning it was good. I heard. I texted his teacher right away to be like, hey, he might have discomfort writing today. Hi, Miss Someone. Good morning, Miss So and so. He might have discomfort writing today because he did not have a good night's sleep and he was being anxious about something else. So he put the toy in the bed with him, and now he has problems writing with that hand. Keep your messages short, clear, and direct, and respectful. Remember that this is a partnership. It's about building the trust. So how are those messages being directed? Sometimes when we are writing a message and we read it, it may sound to us, okay, I'm getting the point across, but how is it coming off to the other person? Is it coming off in a way that they can see exactly what the issue is? Or is it coming off in a different tone? Because it really depends on how we read the tone. There's one teacher at my son's school that she was getting a little frustrated with him because he was off task. So her first message to me was very much like, he's doing this, he's doing the other. There was no hello, there was no hi, nice to meet you. The first communication, it was like all directed to what he was doing. So for me as a parent, I had to take a minute and step back and see exactly what those behaviors were, because every subsequent communication she had with me has been very kind. However, because of that first message, I was very hurt because you're talking about my kiddo, and I understand that you're having an issue of him being focused. And yes, he is wrong, but it is hard not to take it personally when it's your kids. So, as I'm reading that, I'm really trying to read the message itself and what she was trying to convey, that he was distracted and she was getting frustrated. I wish she would have reached out to me earlier with a different tone for the first message, but hearing all the other messages she had afterwards, it really tells me that she's a teacher that cares. And had she given me a second, third, fourth message first, it would have been different. So really give a lot of grace, because sometimes educators are also busy and they're trying to send stuff and they might miss things in the process. And we're trying to create that partnership and respect and really honor them. Honor that we really are both trying to do the best we can for our our kiddo. And also, if we're not sure about the preferred method of communication, try to try to get that right away at the beginning of the year. Is it the application that they would like to communicate with? Is it an email? Is it a messenger? What is? How do I get a hold of the school, of the teacher, if I have any questions? Now, questions that we can ask our child at home, and we kind of talked about this earlier. How was math? What do you learn in math? What was something that was your favorite part today? And then try to expand on that. Make it very open questions. What was challenging about today? And the hardest thing for me to do is suspend judgment as my kiddos are talking, because my default is when I hear my son saying something that I agree with, is like, yes, that was amazing, good job. Or if I hear something that I may not agree with, I'm like, oh no, let's go ahead and fix that. That was not okay because of X, Y, and Z. And it's just so, it is the fastest approach. However, it's not the most successful. So something we have to consider is, when we're talking to them, just suspend the judgment, let them talk, and then coach them through it. How come you did that choice? What would have happened if? And just work through that. Think of the time that you're going to ask them that questions. Have a set time. Is it while you're driving? Is it during the dinner table? Is it right before school? Is it right when you pick them up from school? Is it at 9, right before you tuck them into bed? So, and then also another thing is to focus on the learning the feelings and we can best support them. How we can keep our tone calm and interested as they're talking and sharing their feelings and what is going on. Thinking about these questions, what is a question that, knowing your kiddo, knowing your child, they will respond best to? Okay. Support learning at home. Another thing that we can do is to support learning is, like I mentioned previously, grades are a method of communication. Check them regularly. If you go to work at 8 a.m., that may not be the best time to check grades. However, if you know that your day off is on a Tuesday and you can talk to them and sit down and see the grades together, or if you can check the grades and maybe send it to your partner, or maybe it's best to check the grades right before the dinner table. Set up that time. Set up when you're going to check those methods of communication. When are you going to read those emails? And try your best to at least do it twice or 3 times a week, because things can be missed. I mean, ideally, we can check all the messages right away. Sometimes it feels overwhelming. Establish that communication before the problem arises. Uh, if you're able to, and just say a quick message that said, hello, Miss So and so, or Mr. So and so. My name is Maria. I am the mother of Noah. And if you need anything, please let me know. Thank you. It's just a quick message. There's really no concern at the moment that I have, but I'm starting to build that trust with that teacher. We want to also, when we have a concern, we want to ask and inquire rather than say, oh, well, my child said this and that, the other, or I did this, or they say you did that, or they said that their friend did this or the other, or we need to suspend all of that and ask because there's always more than one side of the story. And focus on that partnership with respect. If, for example, your child has a big science test coming up and they're taking biology, and that is a huge biology test for high school. Ideally, we would want to say to our high schooler, okay, let your teacher know you're feeling anxious. But sometimes it takes a couple minutes or a couple seconds for us just to send that message ahead of time. Hi, Miss So and so. Just a quick question. My son is feeling very stressed out about biology. Is there any other resources you might be able to provide us with before the test? And then be respectful, be clear, be quick, and be straight to the point. And establish that positive relationship with your child's teacher. So, how can we build that? We start by really looking at positive intent. Like I mentioned in the story earlier, when that teacher sent that message to me, and the message may have sounded very negative, but in reality, she was trying to make a point across. So I had to really uphold judgment and focus on the positive intent she was trying to do. She was truly concerned that he was distracted in class. And then, had I received another email that felt so strong from her? No, I have not. She has sent me other emails about the same issue she was having before, but in a very respectful manner, in a very positive way. So then that makes a difference. So it's very important that we assume positive intent and how that might look like for us. And now we have to also think about building that trust in that partnership. That is the keystone of being able to keep working together. Do I trust that the school is doing everything that they can? Does the school trust that I'm supporting them? And that can only be built with interactions and asking questions and having communication, communicating respectfully and clearly, and sharing helpful information about our kiddos. Reaching out early is another way to build that trust. And then focus on the idea that we're both here for that kiddo. We're not here for anything else. We're here for that kiddo. And what does success look like for them? And if there's a misalignment or things are not aligned the way that we think they should be, how are we communicating those expectations? Now, because we're busy parents, and if you are from a household that you have two working parents, you really have to think about managing that time. So when time is very limited, you have to consider what choice is most realistic for your family. Ideally, we would all like to be able to sit down and do band homework every day from Monday through Friday for an hour until they get it right. But my child has more classes than band. So I have to be realistic about my expectation and realize, hey, you also have your algebra class. And right now, because you switched to another school, your algebra is difficult. But you also have to get this band content done. So instead of you practicing for an hour or an hour and a half, I'm so sorry, we're going to have to cut that practice to 30 minutes. And after that 30 minutes practice, we're going to have to focus on your algebra. Or maybe we don't do that band practice today. We have to just focus on algebra. Consistency matters more than anything. How are we communicating things to our children? When are we talking to them? Is it our time for them to share with us during the car time, during drop-off line, during pickup line, right before bed? When am I checking the grades? When am I reaching out? Find a consistent time that works for you. Find a consistent activity that works for you. Most of all, give yourself grace. I feel that as parents, we put so much emphasis and focus to be able to get it right the first time and do it perfect. But there is a blessing, there is a learning opportunity in making a mistake because that means we learn from it. And if we model that to our children, they have the opportunity to keep on growing. So give yourself to keep things simple. It doesn't have to be elaborate. It doesn't have to be that hour and a half. It can really be just 30 minutes. It can be those 20 minutes. It can be twice a week. Because if we went from not doing it at all to doing it twice a week, that's a huge improvement. Take one step at a time. What is the one thing that you hope to accomplish with your kiddo with establishing that engagement? Because remember, engagement doesn't mean you have to be in the school 4 days a week volunteer. It looks different for every family. When you are checking that folder, you are being an engaged parent. When you are communicating with your child's teacher, you are being an engaged parent. So take that one step at a time. Now, practical tips to try. Check your emails. Take a time during the day or during the week to check the communication. If it's not email, is it the reminder app? Is it talking points? Is it class dojo? What is that you are using to check the communication? If you get the newsletter once a month, are you actually reading that newsletter? Add those school dates to your calendar. School days are bound to fluctuate, and as we are coming down to the end of the school year, if you have an elementary kiddo, sometimes in middle school too, they have field day, that day that the kids can go and experience different sports from PE. Do you have those dates on your phone? Do you have those dates in your calendar? And ask one question at a time. Make it open-ended and pick a time to ask that question. Here are our references. If, as always, if you have any questions, you are welcome to email me. I'm going to be pulling up my email as well. Thank you so much for being part of our session of how to engage with your child's school on a busy schedule.